The indie blockbuster 1978's Halloween was the brainchild of film producer Irwin Yablans, who sought out director John Carpenter after seeing Carpenter's assault on Precinct 13. Yablans was looking to do a picture about a killer that stalked babysitters. Carpenter and his girlfriend, Deborah Hill, began working on a story originally titled The Babysitter Murders. Hill introduced the idea of a supernatural force by borrowing from the Gaelic tradition of Samhain. Hill says, quote, "The idea was that you couldn't kill evil, and that was how we came about the story. We went back to the old idea of Samhain, that Halloween was the night where all the souls are let out to wreak havoc on the living, and then came up with the story about the most evil kid who ever lived. And when John came up with this fable of a town with a dark secret of someone who once lived there, and now that evil has come back, that's what made Halloween work." Unquote. Producer Yablans adds that they wanted to play on the audience's fear of the unknown. We won't let them see anything. It's what they don't see that scares them. John Carpenter was heavily influenced by Hitchcock's Psycho, even hiring unknown actor Jamie Lee Curtis, the daughter of Janet Leigh. Mind you, his third choice. Carpenter also states he incorporated ideas from the Canadian film Black Christmas from 1974, arguably the first slasher flick. With a budget of $300,000 and a short 4-week shooting schedule, Halloween became the highest-grossing indie film of the time, grossing $47 million at the box office in the US, which amounts to $227 million today. John Carpenter received $10,000 for directing, writing, and composing the music, retaining rights to 10% of the film's profits. But why was the original Halloween so successful? We have to go back to 1978 and 1963 to understand the movie's appeal. The film opens in 1963, less than a month before the leader of the free world, President John F. Kennedy, was assassinated, a traumatic event that shattered the collective psyche of the American public. Is it a coincidence that John Carpenter and Deborah Hill chose this year to begin the story? Probably not. Both lived through that time, and it had a profound impact on them, as it did on millions of others. In Halloween, we witness a young boy, Michael Myers, stalk and kill his sister after she engages in premarital sex, an act that, in 1963, would have been scandalous. Michael's blank, puzzled expression as he commits this murder suggests that something darker is at work, almost as if he's possessed. This chilling scene sets the tone for a film that would revolutionize horror cinema. One of the groundbreaking techniques Halloween introduced was the use of the Steadicam, giving viewers the eerie sensation of following the killer, often from his point of view. We hear his breathing and see through his eyes, becoming an intimate, almost voyeuristic partner in his horrifying acts. This immersive technique keeps the audience on edge, making the violence feel personal and inescapable. But Halloween is more than just a slasher film. It's a story about the end of innocence. Michael Myers represents the loss of childhood innocence, and the babysitters he stalks, particularly Laurie Strode, embody a vulnerability that resonates with viewers. This loss of innocence extends beyond the characters on screen. The audience, too, is stripped of their sense of safety, reflecting a broader societal shift. The 1960s marked a time of upheaval, and by 1978, American culture had drastically changed. Progressive ideas about sexuality had taken hold, leaving the older generation feeling powerless, as if they had lost control of their youth. This sense of powerlessness, some argue, may have contributed to the rise of serial killers in the 1970s, men who were unable to cope with a changing society that no longer adhered to rigid norms of masculinity and authority. Halloween gave birth to tropes that would define the slasher genre, like the final girl. But what set it apart from the imitators that followed was the deeper nerve it struck with audiences. Beyond the cheap thrills, there was something primal in its story, an anxiety about the changing world and the loss of community. Sexual politics are woven throughout the film, playing into the fears and fantasies of its predominantly male audience. The murders can be seen as a punishment for sexual transgression, a warning to the youth of the time that promiscuity leads to danger. It's no accident that the film's killer, Michael Myers, is often referred to as the boogeyman, a figure of childhood nightmares come to life. The broader subtext of Halloween, though, isn't just about sexual morality. It's about the end of the American dream, the collapse of community, and the isolation of individuals in a society that once valued neighborly trust. Set in the fictional town of Haddonfield, Illinois, modeled after Hill's hometown of Haddonfield, New Jersey, the film taps into the universality of suburban life. For viewers in the late 70s, this was anywhere, USA. The homes, schools, and streets were familiar, making the horror feel close to home. In 1978, American culture was still relatively high trust. If you had a problem, you could count on your neighbors for help. But in Halloween, the opposite happens. The neighbors lock their doors and turn their backs, leaving the victims to fend for themselves. This breakdown of community is one of the film's most terrifying elements, as it reflects a deeper societal fear. We are truly alone in the face of danger. Another unsettling theme is the fear of the intruder. In the sleepy suburbs of the 70s, crime was rare, and the idea of a faceless, unstoppable killer, like Michael Myers invading your home, was the stuff of nightmares. For many suburban kids, including myself growing up near Detroit, the quiet, uneventful streets in Halloween looked just like our own neighborhoods, making the terror feel all the more real. Carpenter and Hill tapped into these anxieties with surgical precision. The film doesn't just scare us with gore or jump scares. It unsettles us with the realization that something fundamental has shifted in American society. The promiscuity on display is a symptom of a larger problem: the disintegration of traditional values and the community's inability to protect its own. The film's most poignant symbol of this loss is Judith Myers' tombstone, which appears later in the movie. Inscribed with "Our beloved daughter," it's a painful reminder that she wasn't just Michael's sister. She was a part of the community. Her death, like those of the other victims, represents society's failure to protect its youth. Fast forward to 2024, and we've seen countless Halloween sequels and reboots, yet the original still stands out. Modern critics often try to label it as a conservative film, claiming that the murders are a punishment for immoral behavior. But this analysis feels reductive. In the 1960s and 70s, there wasn't the same polarized political lens we have today. The issues at play in Halloween weren't about left or right. They were about right and wrong, about the deep cultural changes that left Americans feeling adrift. Between 1963 and 1978, the American dream was dying, and Carpenter, Hill, and producer Yablans knew it. They sent Michael Myers, the Shape, to Haddonfield as a harbinger of this uncomfortable truth, and that's why Halloween was and remains so powerful. It's not just a movie about a killer in a mask. It's about the death of innocence, the collapse of community, and the terrifying realization that we might not be as safe as we once thought. Thanks for watching. Please hit the like and subscribe. Check out another video from our vaults, and we'll see you next time.